All right, welcome back. We're here for another episode of Two Plain Sports. It's been a few days that we've been off. It's the recruiting dead period is underway right now, and it's kind of the news has been a little slower than what we have had in recent memory. So this is why we've slowed down on some videos. But don't get me wrong, we're keeping up with the news and everything else. We've got a few things to cover today. But before we get into it, we just want to say we really appreciate all the support. We've been growing like crazy. Not only on here, but we're seeing a uptick in Spotify downloads, follows on Twitter, follows on Instagram. We really appreciate it. Make sure to, if you hadn't already, go find us on there. It's all at Two Plain Sports, pretty easy. And if you hadn't already subscribed on here, because I know a lot of you guys come back and watch our videos, there's a large portion of you that aren't subscribed. It's all free. It helps us out a ton, and it lets us know that you're liking what you're seeing, and we'll keep it coming your way. So if make sure to turn on that notification bell and leave a comment and like the video and let us know what you think on what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to talk about Daniel Parker. He was a transfer from Missouri. McKahel Mataele, transfer from Cal. We're going to talk about a few quotes from Marvin Mims and Woody Washington and Kale Gundy that have been coming out in the pressers leading up to the Alamo Bowl, and basically our opinions on what the Sooners are getting in these transfers, and some reactions to some quotes. So we'll get into it. The first guy we're going to talk about is Daniel Parker. He's a 6'4", 245 pound tight end. Coming out of high school, he was a 3-star prospect, number 496 overall, and number 21 strong defensive end. So he came out as a defensive. He transitioned into a tight end at Missouri. And his Missouri career, he has 41 catches, 337 yards, and 4 touchdowns in his career. He's been there for a handful of years. He wasn't a prolific pass catcher for the Tigers, but more of a great blocker. He blocked really well. And, the connection that came, that probably brought him to Oklahoma was Joe John Finley was there for a couple years and developed Daniel Parker. So that familiarity and brought him in. It comes to no shock that we've seen a tight end transfer in because of the depth that the Sooners are losing in Jeremiah Hall going to the NFL, Stogner's out at South Carolina. And, looking at the depth at the tight end position, Jason Llewellyn, Caden Helms, and possibly Braden Willis, if he decides to come back, he has the option to go to the NFL. So worst case scenario, you've got 2 freshmen and then Daniel Parker. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, so this is a big guy to get for 2 reasons. One, like you said, he's going to add depth to the roster. Depending on Willis, we could be with 3 or 4 tight ends. Other big thing is that we're seeing that Venables was for sure serious about his change in how his opinion is towards the transfer portal now that he is the head coach at Oklahoma. Coming out, coming out of Clemson, he said he wasn't really a huge fan, just like Dabo Sweeney, also probably not a big fan of NIL, but he's understanding now as a head coach, being the face of the recruiting and the face of the program. You have to have a little bit more flexibility, and you definitely can't be too anti all these changes at this point, because if you don't embrace them, you're going to be left behind. And he's doing just that. He's embracing it. If he likes it or not, it's working for him. This was the first transfer that he's gotten. We'll talk about another one here in a second, but I think those are the 2 big things that stand out to me in him coming to Oklahoma. Like you said, it seems like he's not going to be a huge presence in the pass game. Honestly, I think he will probably get a lot more time than the 2 young guys overall, just because of his experience, his age. And something to note, we checked out Ole Miss's roster right before. They don't run H-backs. I don't know if that's something that Lebby will change now that he is the OC at Oklahoma, but I don't expect him to change that aspect of his depth chart and his overall game planning. So him being more of a true tight end potentially for Lebby's system might be big for him. He might incorporate more into the passing game if he proves that he can be an asset there, not just blocking. But for the blocking side, he seems very proud of being a really good blocker at the tight end position, and it's going to help a lot in the run game. We've got maybe Kennedy Brooks coming back, who knows? But for sure, we could have Gray, Marcus Major, and then Gavin Sawchuk. Who knows how much time he'll get? But having a guy that can block and really get out there, especially on maybe sorry, swing routes or more outside running, he'll definitely be an impactful player once it goes to setting the edge and helping the running back get to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. And this might be, like you said, this is signaling maybe a philosophy change that Oklahoma is going to go under. When it comes time to, big boy football, the game winning drives, when you need to run the ball, you bring in a guy like Daniel Parker who can block. Because if hypothetically, if Willis did leave and then, if Parker wasn't here, not saying that they wouldn't go get another tight end transfer, but you would have Jason Llewellyn and Caden Helms. And no disrespect to them, but they are freshmen, and they need a year or so of development and put on some weight, like most freshmen do. They wouldn't really provide any help in the running game. I mean, not that they're small or anything. It's just I feel like Parker is a lot more polished. He could come in and be in critical, downs and big time game winning drives, and when you need to bleed the clock. And it brings that veteran leadership, and that maybe it will foster some development for the young guys, and some how Joe John Finley has been coaching. He coached him for a couple years. Maybe he's going to use him as kind of a coach on the field or coach in the room with them to help these young guys, kind of understand what they're looking for. I really like the idea of having a really good running, a run blocking tight end. And I think, I do think he can excel in this offense as long as Caleb Williams stays. He probably will have a career year as far as catching goes, just because he's going to see a lot of time on the field. Especially if Willis decides to leave, he's going to see a ton of time.
Yeah. And something else to note, like you said, coming out of high school, he was a strong side defensive end, and he was willing to make the change to tight end. I don't know how willing he was when he made it, but the fact that he did it and was considerate of what team needed and what coaches asked of him, that is important. And when we're talking about how Brent Venables is trying to change the culture at Oklahoma, this guy's a guy that completely buys into whatever team he's playing for. And that's going to be huge, not just for this upcoming year, but for years to come, not because he'll be here for a long time, but he's going to pass on that attitude to the tight ends in the room and maybe the fullbacks, or maybe the offensive line if he's in that room, or the people that he's going to be close with are going to feed off of that mentality and learn, especially the younger guys like Helms and Llewellyn, who are definitely at least going to have a year with him in the same room. That's going to be, I think, something that'll pay off in the long run, to really show,
Yeah.
like, just because I came in he wasn't highly recruited, but he was recruited as a strong side defensive end, and he was willing to make the change. That speaks volumes to his character and the culture or his character and what the coaches are looking for in the culture.
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree. And that's a great point, because I think Venables is trying to build the program in a way of like, one guy is not bigger than the program. Like Bob Stoops was saying, like you come here, you buy in, you are, you're not bigger than anyone else, no matter who you are. And I think, Parker embodies that. And I do agree that that's going to rub off on some of the younger guys and what they're trying to do. But as far as from a personal standpoint for Parker, I do think, coming to Oklahoma is probably his best chance to have a chance in the NFL, and the development he's going to get and the opportunities he's going to get, especially if Caleb Williams decides to stay, which is assuming he will, is going to be a lot better than what it would be at Missouri. And that's just being honest.
Yeah.
So,
And it'll be he will help people understand how and if and how there is a difference in game style from the SEC to the Big 12. He's
that's
experienced
true.
there. He knows like how difficult it is to block someone, so he'll probably bring that sort of intensity and really probably hopefully talk about the differences that he sees, so that once Oklahoma does make that change, they know what to expect. The players at least know what to expect. It's probably still going to hit them like a brick wall. Hopefully not, but I don't think it's far-fetched to say that like a change is still there more than likely, but at least they know what they're facing rather than being caught off guard.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that he could bring that SEC perspective. And, because assuming that Jason Llewellyn and Caden Helms are going to, not transfer, they're most likely going to be a part of the transition from the Big 12 to the SEC. And so they're going to see from both sides, and they're getting a good vantage point from someone who was just there for his entire career. No, I'm excited. I mean, I think this is a much needed addition. And I think Venables, like you said, he's changing the philosophy of the, taking a transfer or not. Do you have anything to add before we move on to the next guy? Okay. So the next guy, which came today, we're recording this on Monday, the 27th, is McKahel Mataele. He's a 6'4", 304-pound guard, and coming out of high school, he was a 3-star, number 796 overall, and number 44 guard in the 2019 class. While he's been at Cal, he's played in all 29 possible games since he's arrived in 2019. And he has started the last 28 games at right guard. This year he was all Pac-12 second team. And, this is another position that we've been talking about over the last few weeks that we felt like they needed to address this depth, whether it was with young guys, recruits, or you get a couple transfers, which I agree with going the transfer route, because you can't let Kale Williams get hit, time and time again. You need to bring that instant leadership and whatnot. They're losing along the offensive line, obviously Robinson, right tackle, but they are losing Marquise Hayes, because they're both church seniors, which I guess technically they do have a year left, both of them, because of COVID, the COVID year. So obviously, McKahel Mataele played guard at Cal, Hayes left guard for the Sooners. So there's an instant void. So with his transfer coming in, I'm looking at it as Hayes has given the indication that he's going to go to the NFL. He must have gotten the grades he liked, or, mid-round probably, and he's just going to go for it, which I don't blame him. So with them going out and getting Mataele, gosh, I mean, this, I'm surprised that, a guy like him would be in the portal. I guess not really surprised, because it is, at Cal, but getting a guy like him with the 3 years of playing experience to come in and fill that guard position, whether he's left guard or right guard, that's going to be up to him and Chris Murray, to come around and, sandwich Rame in the middle. That's a solid interior offensive line. What do you think?
Yeah, he's a big guy, and it's going to be good to have experience. And I guess not to call him old, but maturity at that position, because like a lot of us saw this last year, there were a lot of mistakes happening, and yes, they got better as time went on, but ideally you're not having to look at small improvements every single game, and you're just making small adjustments to sustain the same success that we've had in the past. So it is going to be good that this guy has the chance to play, especially for Coach B. He's probably a huge fan of that pickup, and I would assume, and I don't know if it's obvious, but he's probably a big reason why this guy came to Oklahoma. Coach B being one of the best offensive line coach in the nation is always going to be a reason why offensive linemen want to go to Oklahoma. But it's going to be exciting to see how this addition comes in and really mixes into the whole unit. Because as we said last year, throughout the year, yes, mistakes are happening, but at the end of the day, if one guy makes a mistake, everyone makes a mistake on the offensive line. And what we need from him, and hopefully Rame, now that he's got a year under his belt, is they both tag team the leadership roles and really just bring this line together, bring this unit together, so these mistakes aren't happening so often, and they're better at picking up the blitz. And the guy we just talked about before, and Parker, is going to hopefully help that, and all three of them can really just mold this offense or pass protection and run blocking unit together, so that their success and the success we've seen in the past, not last year. I think last year was just an overall disappointment for how the offensive line played for the majority of the year. They didn't, again, like I said, they did improve once we got towards the end, but I'd much rather see them all year be great rather than having to rotate all these guys in just to finally find the right fits.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And, the instant leadership, like you mentioned, I mean, that is an added bonus that really can't be measured at the end of the day. To bring in a guy, not start a true freshman at guard or a redshirt freshman that has to, factor into maybe Caleb Williams' decision. I mean, because that offensive line now, I mean, the continuity or the experience and the two guard positions in the center, and then you've got Anton Harrison out left. And then I'm assuming Wanya Morris will be at the right tackle position. There's going to be a lot of experience along that offensive line that's going to give him that comfort. And then, they can bring in Daniel Parker and, bring in the jumbo package and, bring an extra blocker in to help him out. So I think this is going to help tremendously, to not see a dip in the offensive line play. But I think this is an overall comment that I've got is it's interesting with the two transfers coming in. I feel like they've came out of nowhere. They just shown up on Twitter, just they're announced that they're committed, which that's great. It's interesting because I felt like under Lincoln Riley, there was always reports. Everyone knew everything that was going on. I mean, there was nothing secret other than his USC deal. As far as recruits go, I felt like it was all pretty public knowledge. And I feel like Venables and his staff with Levy and whatnot, they've been keeping this under the wraps, at least for the transfers, tremendously. Because I mean, I read a lot and I follow a lot, and maybe I'm missing something, but I felt like both of these guys came out of nowhere, and it was great surprises. I just wasn't expecting anything.
Yeah, it's that change in philosophy that Venables is bringing to the program. Not flashy, which I mean it works. We saw it work. Not I don't think that it'd be fair to say that what Lincoln and how Lincoln operates for recruiting is wrong, because I mean we saw the classes he was bringing in. We saw what the 2023 class was looking like before he left. It works in bringing in highly ranked, highly sought after recruits. I think this philosophy is, again, like Venable said, I'm looking for people that fit the culture that he wants to establish at the university. And the cult, he's just about hard work and getting things done. And I'm assuming these guys are as well. Venables is giving him an offer. So again, it's just a change of philosophy in their approach to recruiting. And if we look at Venable's track record, he's not a guy that loses very often, if ever. So I think this is one that's proven to work, and we just now need to see it in crimson and cream. And hopefully over the next few years, we can finally get another national championship.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it at all. It's definitely making me want to stay glued to Twitter a little bit more to watch for these transfers. I feel like they're not done as far as transfers go. This is just probably the start after the Alamo Bowl. They'll know exactly who's going, who's staying, who's transferring and whatnot, and they'll, address it accordingly. I feel like they'll still go out and try to maybe, I don't know, maybe pick up another defensive lineman or another, maybe another offensive lineman just for that added depth. I know Bray Walker came back. I feel like they're going to still add one or two more guys from, in various positions that to help out with depth. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if we're going to be able to start figuring out quicker before it comes on Twitter, but if I were to guess, probably not. But so.
Yeah, I think I agree with your sentiment about after the bowl game, we'll know more about more transfers coming or maybe more recruits, scheduling their official visits or making their commitment to you. And it's all, I mean, we've talked about it before, and we did a video about it, about position coaches that OU could potentially get. It's important to these recruits to an extent, but some of them are committing regardless of the position coach that'll be there because they love Venables, or they've always dreamed about going to OU or whatever school that they committed to. Not every school, a lot of schools are in a similar position where they don't have every position coach filled in. I think it's going to be much more important for transfers to see who's going to coach me. Those guys are experienced. They've seen what it's like to work with someone maybe they didn't want to, or the guy that they did expect to work with is no longer at the university they were just at. So now these guys are actually going to focus. They're going to be even more focused on who is my coach. And if we're going to pick up defensive linemen and corners from the transfer portal, that's going to be important for them. And hopefully we have those position coaches filled in by the end of this week, beginning of next week.
Yeah, I mean that's also something we're going to be covering as much as we can and putting out content to give our breakdown. But it seems like no one knows exactly who's going to be the position coaches. We put out a video of some good ideas, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So, do you have anything to add before we move on to some quotes of the Alamo Bowl and some pressers? I saw this one from Marvin Mims. Basically, I'm paraphrasing here, is he wants to be a Sooner. Basically, he said he wants to be in the Crimson and Cream next year, which I find interesting. Once, then why not? Like what's in the back of his head and holding him back? And if I were to guess, he's just waiting on for Caleb Williams to come out publicly and saying he's going to, return for the next season. I feel like if Williams leaves, Mims will leave. And I'm not 100% sure about that, but I feel like that's why he's not saying I will be back for sure, is he's waiting to see what his quarterback does. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think at that point it's just how he expressed it. I fully expect him to be back at OU. I expect Caleb to be at OU, and the reason for that is because Theo Weiss is back at OU. If there was going to be some drastic move for Mims and Williams, I think we would have seen something with Mims going to a different school. And I don't know if they would have followed him to whatever school he would have gone to, but he would have definitely not come back to OU. I think him coming back to OU, how Caleb has been speaking about, or tweeting. He was on the Prairie, the Pod on the Prairie with Jeremiah Hall and Braden Willis. He's been a lot more active on with social media and media in general. I think while he hasn't expressed that, yes, I'm coming back to Oklahoma, I also don't think that he's really said or done anything that would turn us the other way. And same thing with Mims. The only thing that was concerning for a few days was that he said he considered the transfer portal, but that was fresh off of Lincoln leaving. I think it's fair for him to entertain that possibility, but he never entered his name. So he was committed, or at least wanted to see what was going to happen with the coaching situation, and he likes what's happened. I believe he said that he really loves the energy that Venables has brought into the locker room already. And I'm sure Bob is probably has a similar energy in that locker room. So why wouldn't he want to stick around? I think at this point it's just how he phrased his want to be back, or that he is going to be back, rather than waiting for something to happen to enter the portal. And at this point, it's also late. If you're not going to be committed to this team, then go join the team that you are going to be committed to. Like you're putting two programs in a weird situation if you're not going to leave pre-bowl game at this, with how college football is now.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes total sense. I do agree. I expect him to be back. I just thought it was a little interesting how he said that, but you know, like you said, he thought about going to the transfer portal and he didn't. That has to speak volumes about his chances of coming back. Another guy that actually came out and said he will be back is Woody Washington, which I think is a big time deal for the Sooners in the secondary of that that defense. He brings in a lot of leadership, a lot of talent, and just give some stability back there, because obviously it seems like the Sooners are going to lose both of their safeties in Pat Fields and DTY, assuming they both leave. I know Key Lawrence has been talked about moving back to his natural position of safety. Losing a guy like Washington on top of both of the safeties, that's a lot of depth to lose, in the back end of the defense. And having Washington come back, makes sense. I don't think he was getting the draft grades he was probably hoping for after getting hurt and whatnot. Um, and I think a year under Venables and his coaching staff, whoever the cornerbacks coach is going to be, will do him some good for his future and going to the NFL. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's one I'm super excited about. Personally, I love to watch the defense play. Not that offense isn't fun to watch because they get to score the points, but I love seeing hard hits, interceptions, pass breakups. And Woody Washington, when he came back from his injury, made a big difference in how that defense played last year. When him and DJ were off the field and gone due to their injuries, the defense, that's when they looked the worst. They came back, passing defense looked a little bit better. They didn't look night, I wouldn't say that they looked like a top 20 defense, but they definitely looked better. And yeah, not everyone was a fan of the speed D, and I think speed D was kind of make or break. You either really are, you make the right play, or you are going to screw up completely, and it's gonna hurt us. And then, like you said, with Venables, this new defensive scheme, and hopefully with him having a really good DB coach, that's going to help him progress and develop here over the next year. He can prove that he should be a top 3 round pick in the NFL, because I think he's got that kind of talent to make it far into the next level of football.
Yeah, I mean, he just needs to put it all together. Some good coaching, better scheme. I do agree with you. With that speed D logic, it was feast or famine. It just was, sometimes it was great, sometimes it wasn't. I mean, it was better than what it was under Mike Stoops towards the end of his tenure. But I do think this scheme with Washington will benefit him quite a bit. I think the last quote that we'll talk about today was one that came out today. It's probably one of my favorite ones I've heard in recent memory. Is from Kale Gundy, and in quotes, he says, "We're going to win a bunch of damn football games with Brent Venables." End of quotes. I love that. It just speaks volumes. I know Kale Gundy and Venables have coached before, and they've been on the same team before, because obviously Gundy's been here forever. Venables has been, he was there for a long time as well before coming back. It just speaks volumes to the leadership, the intangibles that Venables has, and the stability, and just the big picture that he's given these coaches and these kids, and just the philosophy, just the family feeling, and it's, Kale Gundy, like when he said it, it seems like he believes in it, and it's not like Venables has to sell someone on that. I think that's the biggest difference. Is I feel like Riley and his staff was having to sell people on this concept. I don't think Venables has to sell this mantra and this mindset. I think he just has it, and some people just have that about them.
Yeah. And even if he doesn't have to sell it, it's just a natural sell. It seems like Kale saying that, all the players that have come out publicly and said that they love Venables now, or they love Venables and how he coaches, the energy he brings. It just that overall, it's going to be different. This isn't going to be the same Oklahoma that we had under Lincoln Riley. And I mean, to be honest, yeah, we were frustrated when he left because of how he left. And maybe some people for that he left. But at the end of the day, the dude did win games, but he did drop the ball in the biggest moments. I think that's going to be the difference here with Venables. He's not going to be a guy that will be known for dropping the ball in the biggest moments. At least I don't expect it to be. Now, I could be proven wrong, but with how the players have come out, again, with Kale saying this, it's a much more exciting, much more old school way of football. They're gonna run through a wall for this guy, and it's gonna be fun to watch on the football field next season.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm excited to see how they look in the Alamo Bowl with, I know Bob Stoops and the old coaching staff, or some of the old coaching staff is there. So it's not exactly Venables' deal, but Venables and Stoops, Venables is a Bob Stoops disciple or whatever, he's like a protege of him. So, what we get in Bob Stoops is kind of what we're getting with Venables. And it's just exciting to see. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this one up? No. So, all righty. Well, if you made it this far, we really appreciate it. If you hadn't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all our new videos. Like the video and let us know what you think about Parker, Met Tower, and these quotes from Mims and Washington, Kale Gundy. Let us know what you think. Might not agree with us. Let us know, and that's totally fine. And keep spreading the word. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and find us on Spotify at Two Plain Sports. Brandon's not here, so he doesn't have an end of video challenge. I guess I'll just fill in for him and maybe just do hashtag transfer. I don't know. Hashtag transfer. Brandon's a little better at it than I am. But he didn't make it for this video. So if you made it this far, we really appreciate it, and we hope to catch you in the next one. Thanks.